Welcome everyone, I'm Lucy, and in this class we're going to be learning some best practice tips for managing remote people and teams. The way we work has changed. Whether your whole team is remote or just a few people, you can be sure that over the next few years, someone you manage is not going to be in the same location as you or working the same hours as you. Managing remote people isn't wildly different to in-person. Humans are still humans, but there are some small differences, and those differences really matter. So firstly, it's helpful to understand the common challenges in managing remote teams. And Barbara Larson, Executive Professor of Management at Northeastern's DeMoore McKim School of Business, has a lovely list of these. Firstly, there are fewer opportunities for help. Whether your team is junior or relatively senior, everyone needs those unblocking conversations which happen less frequently when you're not in the office sitting near each other. Secondly, there's a lack of access to information. A lot of additional time and effort is required to locate information of all kinds when you're working remotely. Whether it's information about strategic decisions coming from leadership, or about a team member having a particularly bad day and needing some extra empathy. Thirdly, there's social isolation. Not feeling connected to your co-workers is going to impact your sense of belonging to a team or an organization. And in my experience, proactivity starts off quite high and then dwindles over time. What other challenges of working from home have you personally experienced? Take a moment to write those down, because when we raise our awareness and we pay attention to our own struggles, that really helps us identify ways we can empathize with our direct reports and make their remote working experience that much better. Before we dive into specific tips, let's look at Elevate's remote working trio. Having coached many managers who work remotely, we've come up with a simple model to help us understand 3 core areas to really proactively focus on. Firstly, we have over-clarify expectations. Setting clear expectations across the board, from metrics to communication patterns, is going to be even more critical when people are remote. Everyone needs to be rowing in the same direction. Next, we have to create community and culture. This is so much easier to do in person. So if we're going to combat that isolation factor and foster that sense of community and belonging, we're going to need to be proactive about this too. Lastly, we need to manage emotions. Some people, as we know, make their emotions crystal clear, and as managers, we are under no false illusions as to their emotional well-being. Others, however, are not so forthcoming. They either don't recognize a slump or don't feel comfortable talking about it. Either way, we need to help people here. Now, let's do a deep dive into each of these areas and look at some practical tips and ideas. Over-clarify expectations. Tip 1. Make sure all expectations are written down and shared and verbally communicated, either in team settings or one-on-one where most appropriate. Included in that list might be expectations around goals and metrics, roles and responsibilities, individual performance, team communication, how we behave and treat each other, and how you'd like your reports to manage up to you. Having seen this list, what's an expectation that you need to set more clearly with your team? Take a moment to write that down. Tip 2, set an appropriate cadence of communication with individuals and for the whole team. I'd suggest designing this as a team together. Use a team meeting to ask, what is the right cadence of meetings for us as a team? How are we going to check in and hold each other accountable? What should we expect from each other? For example, being on time, responding to emails within a day, etc. When you've designed an appropriate cadence of communication, make sure it's written down and included in onboarding documents so new joiners are in the know. Tip 3. Remote workers need to know that they're not being treated differently to their in-person counterparts, especially when it comes to the bar for performance and metrics. There needs to be equality in accountability across the group, so make sure you apply the same expectations to everyone on the team. Create community and culture. Tip 1. Create some team rituals. Rituals provide predictability and structure, and when we're trying to create community and culture, these are good things. Here are some ideas of what I mean. Setting aside the first few minutes of calls and video conferences to chat about life things. What connects virtual teams are those personal details, and these are easily missed without proactively building in time to chat about them. For weekly team meetings, you can kick these off by asking some fun questions. You can also rotate who's going to pick and ask the questions each week. We had a client recently who added in a 30-minute Friday wins session at 4 p.m. They found this was a great way to round off the week and let people know what's gone well, focus on the positives, and showcase great work. You can gamify things as much as you like, as long as the team is on board. Other teams create mini friendly competitions that have no bearing on performance assessments, for which individuals get digital badges if they win. What other ways to connect and have fun can you think of? Take a moment to write some ideas down. You might want to make a direct report of yours, the head of or ambassador of culture and community for your team, so they can come up with ideas and design what that looks like. Organized fun from leadership can be a little nauseating, and you don't have to come up with all those ideas on your own. Tip 2. As the manager of a remote team, you have to make an effort to be visible, upwards to your manager, across to your peers, and to your direct reports. Visibility looks different in each of those 3 areas. With your manager, I'd suggest proactively making time to ask them, what do you need from me to set you up for success? And when would you like to receive it? Does that take the form of a spreadsheet, an email at the end of the week, notes on your shared doc? Or are there certain things they'd like you to prepare in advance of one-on-ones with you? With your peers, you might think about scheduling monthly virtual coffees with them if you don't interact with them all that much during your day-to-day work. With your direct reports, one idea to increase your visibility, in addition to holding team meetings and regular one-on-ones with each person, is to create office hours. This could be a hold in your calendar for just 30 minutes a day, where you invite your directs to join a video meeting if they have questions or concerns that can be addressed in 10 minutes or less. If you create a virtual waiting room, you can then admit people one by one in the order in which they arrived. By being available in this way, you're helping your team feel better connected to you, and you're creating that culture of being available for each other. Managing emotions. Tip 1. Remember to praise and acknowledge things that remote people have done. We want people to feel like their work is recognized, but we also want to signal to others that each person is pulling their weight for the team. When people are in an office together, you can kind of see who's at their desk, working or in meetings, but that's really hard when people are remote. Also, more public thank you emails, CCing in others like your manager or other peers is a nice touch. Tip 2. Do better than, how are you? You miss so many cues that someone is struggling emotionally when we're not together in person. Instead, allow space for someone to discuss how they're doing. Say something like, I want to allow some time now before we dig into the rest of the agenda to really check in with you on how you're doing at the moment. I know it's not been an easy time. Then stop talking and let the other person say what's on their mind. Tip 3. Create clear boundaries for yourself and encourage others to set their own. Say things like, I'm going to take advantage of my kids being home to set up 45 minutes at noon to have lunch with them. Or, I'll be available after 8:30 a.m. to chat, but I'm going to be on my exercise bike at 8 a.m. And asking questions like, how are you thinking about taking some time for yourself this week? By setting these expectations like this, we set our own boundaries and we give others permission to set theirs. Pick one thing you can do to help your remote employees with their emotional well-being this week. To help keep you accountable, take a moment to add this action in the section just below the video. Remember, being proactive is what's needed to do a great job managing remote employees, and small changes in each of these 3 areas on Elevate's remote working trio will make a big difference to the productivity and well-being of your team. Good luck, and let us know how you get on.